on because we got a lot to talk about. We have a very cool comic review this week. Something that I didn't even realize it was coming out this week until I started putting my list together and I saw the what do you call them? The previews that we got for this week. So big shout out to our friends over at Image who
What?
sent us who sent have you guys did you guys read the other ones, the other Universal Monsters stuff?
I
The
did not
Creature
read
from Black
Dracula.
Lagoon.
I did read Preacher from Black Lagoon.
Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Dracula is fantastic. If you haven't read it, go back and read it. But today we'll be talking about Universal Monsters Frankenstein #1. This
That
is a new
cover
comic.
is so beautiful.
So
Yeah.
good, so good. Uh, let's talk about the creative team before we get into this. This is written and drawn by Michael Walsh, who you may know from the anthology over at Image as well, called The Silver Coin, as well as so many other things. Fantastic artist. I think he started as an artist, but he's a storyteller now, so it works great. With colors by Tony Marie Griffin and letters by Becca Carey. Let me give you a quick synopsis, and then we'll get into your actual thoughts. A modern-day horror visionary resurrects one of the most iconic monsters. Award-winning creator Michael Walsh presents an electrifying, pun probably fully intended there from my Image, new vision of the horror classic. Each issue of the limited series tells the shocking story behind one of the body parts used to create the unforgettable monster in the original film. In this issue, Dr. Henry Frankenstein begins his unholy quest to create life by robbing the grave of a decorated police officer. But little does he know that the corpse has a son who's mourning after the father, and that this young boy will forever change Frankenstein's life. Now, do they mean the monster or the doctor?
The Doctor.
I don't know. We'll see. Whoops. So, Clay, we'll go to you first. What did you think of this book?
The art is perfect. I mean, it is. I would say I would compare it to like Mike Mignola from Hellboy. That it's perfect tone for this story. It almost feels like he's recreated the movie on page with some of the shots, some of the panels, and then recreating the film with this boy who's trying to find his father's body, which is so creepy and so unsettling. And then you have this kid who's discovering what Dr. Frankenstein is doing. It's just a great slow build of just tension and horror. I really loved it.
All right, Jeff, what about you?
Samesies. The artwork is fantastic. It definitely made me want to go back and watch the movie.
Yeah.
Which is definitely based off the movie, not the book. Because I read the book earlier this year, and I watched the movie, but there was still some parts where I was like, this definitely made me, I want to go back and rewatch because it is lifted straight from the movie. There are some scenes from the movie that are in this comic. And it's really cool what he's doing is that he's just adding this little layer to the movie and telling this little story around that. Super creepy, very scary. Like comics aren't, there's just something ethereal about the art where you're like, oh, that's creepy and scary. It's great. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that page gave me oh my gosh, who's the great horror artist? Bernie Wrightson vibes.
Oh
Yeah, definitely.
I also really enjoy this. I didn't read the synopsis prior to reading, so I didn't know like each issue was gonna focus on a different body part. I just thought I was like, oh, what a cool concept. We're looking at like where the body parts came from, and then we have this kid who's recently lost his father, and that was cool. Like, and then when you get to the castle and you get to see, I think the color wash does a lot here too. Like, just makes it look so cool, and it captures the tone of what I want to see in a Frankenstein. It's not black and white, but it kind of feels like it's black and white.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. And just like the doctor, obviously, just great characterization of like this just true villain, right? Of like he has one goal in mind and he doesn't care what happens. Like when people storm his castle and he starts to race up the thing and like the creature comes to life. Very very cool. And
Also,
then
like it's a. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Disney.
I was
I'm
gonna
sorry.
say that there's some touching moments, which is not something I was expecting from this type of book. But yeah, Jeff, go ahead.
Well, just yeah, to kind of pivot off that touching moments part, like I feel like some of these Universal monsters are so old that it's hard to tell a horror story with them because we're so like used to mutants that live in the Tennessee hills or whatever, like horror is different today than it was
Yeah,
back then.
yeah.
So there is something very horrific if you're a little kid and your father dies and then a part of his body gets taken to create some like attached to a thing that is unliving and moving around. Like that is horrific, like from that little kid's point of view. And there's some times when he's like hiding from the people around him and you see like all the dead body parts like just kind of strewn about. I'm just like, yeah, this is good horror stuff,
Yeah, yeah. There's a sequence where like you just kind of see it's all about the little details in this book, and there's like an oil drum full of body parts
Yeah,
just
yeah.
sticking out, and like I would love to see more of the lab, like just the castle, I guess, or whatever. But it's fantastic. It's really I really enjoyed the other two. I've been reading them all, so like the Creature from the Black Lagoon really works as a sequel to the movie,
Yeah.
which I want to go back and rewatch. Frankenstein or Dracula, just like it's so horrific and beautiful, but it's just kind of very restrained too. It's not even really about Dracula up until like that maybe the last issue. But this one, they feel like they kind of went head first. No pun intended. But
They
yeah,
really
it's
stuck
great.
their neck out.
Really, yeah, for sure. So really cool stuff.
What do you think that castle smells like?
Oh, rank.
Oh, death
Rank.
times 10.
I think it smells like flowers.
I hope they explain why his head is flat.
I mean, he would have used something to preserve some of those bodies. So
It's like formaldehyde and roses.
So it depends on the science of the time, but I feel like the formaldehyde would just be so thick and the stench.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any other thoughts on this? If not, I'll show you guys some really cool covers that you'll want to pick up.
Yeah, let's see the covers.